Hey everybody, welcome to another Grimm's Tale adventure. Yep, we've gone through 3 stories so far, so we're ready for number 4. Man, I feel like, I've been missing something in my life. Like quality maybe, and maybe some strategy on how I read things. Maybe I should proofread things and so I don't get anything messed up, or do test run video takes and if it's bad, I just redo it all and spend countless hours. But, I don't have time for that. I'm just here to read you a damn story. And, it's alright. We'll just zap it away. Oh, guess what? I can do that again. Zap. Anyway, I'm getting way over myself, folks. We're ready to read the next story of Grimm's Tale. So, I wonder what it'll be today. Wait, what was I doing? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, sorry. It's like my head exploded or something. I don't know. But ready for number 4. Yeah, my nose doesn't itch today, which is great. So let's go on to the story. And we're going to do the same approach just like last time. It's going to be the same. You're going to hear my beautiful voice up close and personal. Oh, so what's the next story? Oh, geez. Well, last story we read was Sweet Porridge, which was really short. I think this one's kind of a long one, folks, so get ready for the massacre for your ears. Yeah, it's going to be really good to go to hell and back. Well, let's get on with it, shall we? Story number 4, The Young Giant. Once on a time, a countryman had a son who was as big as a thumb, and did not become any bigger, and during several years did not grow 1 hair's breadth. Once when the father was going out to plow, the little one said, "Father, I will go out with you."
"Thou wouldst go out with me?" said the father. "Stay here, thou will be of no use out there. Besides, thou mightest get lost."
Then Tom Thumb began to cry, and for the sake of peace his father put him in his pocket and took him with him. When he was outside in the field he took him out again, and set him in a freshly cut furrow. Whilst he was there, a great giant came over the hill.
"Do thou see that great bogey?" said the father, for he wanted to frighten the little fellow to make him good. "He is coming to fetch thee."
The giant, however, had scarcely taken 2 steps with his long legs before he was in the furrow. He took up little Tom Thumb carefully with 2 fingers, examined him, and without saying one word went away with him. His father stood by, but could not utter a sound for terror, and he thought nothing else but that the child was lost, and that as long as he lived, he should never set eyes on him again. The giant, however, carried him home, suckled him, and Tom Thumb grew, and became tall and strong after the manner of giants. When 2 years had passed, the old giant took him into the forest, wanted to try him, and said,
"Pull up a stick for thyself."
Then the boy was already so strong that he tore up a young tree out of the earth by the roots. But the giant thought,
"We must do better than that,"
took him back again, and suckled him 2 years longer. When he tried him, his strength had increased so much that he could tear an old tree out of the ground. That was still not enough for the giant. He again suckled for 2 years, and when he went with him into the forest and said,
"Now, just tear up a proper stick for me,"
the boy tore up the strongest oak tree from the earth, so that it split, and that was a mere trifle to him.
"Now that will do," said the giant. "Thou art perfect,"
and took him back to the field from whence he had brought him. His father was there following the plow. The young giant went up to him and said,
"Does my father see what a fine man his son has grown into?"
The farmer was alarmed and said,
"No, thou art not my son. I don't want thee. Leave me."
"Truly, I am your son. Allow me to do your work. I can plow as well as you, nay better."
No, no, thou art not my son, and thou canst not plough. Go away. However, as he was afraid of this great man, he let go of the plough, stepped back, and stood at one side of the piece of land. Then took the youth the plough and just pressed it with one hand, but its grasp was so strong that the plough went deep into the earth. The farmer could not bear to see that, and called to him, If thou art work. The youth, however, unharnessed the horses and drew the plough himself, saying, Just go home, father, and bid my mother make ready a large dish of food, and in the meantime I will go over the field. Then the farmer went home and ordered his wife to prepare the food. But the youth plowed the field, which was 2 acres large, quite alone, and then he harnessed himself to the harrow and harrowed the whole of the land, using 2 harrows at once. When he had done it, he went into the forest and pulled up 2 oak trees, laid them across his shoulders, and hung on them 1 harrow behind and 1 before, and also 1 horse behind and 1 before, and carried as all if it had been a bundle of straw to his parents' house. When he entered the yard, his mother did not recognize him, and asked, Who is this terrible tall man? The farmer said, That is our son. She said, No, that cannot be our son. We never had such a tall one. Ours was a little thing. She called to him, Go away. We do not want thee. The youth was silent, but led his horses to the stable, gave them some oats and hay and all they wanted. When he had done this, he went into the parlor, sat down on the bench, and said, Mother, now I should like something to eat. Will it soon be ready? Then she said, Yes, and brought in 2 immense dishes full of food, which would have been enough to satisfy herself and her husband for a week. The youth, however, ate the whole of it himself, and asked if she had nothing more to set before him. No, she replied, that is all we have. But that was only a taste. I must have more. She did not dare to oppose him, and went and put a huge cauldron full of food on the fire, and when it was ready, carried it in. At length come at few crumbs, said he, and ate all there was, but it was still not sufficient to appease his hunger. Then he said, Father, I see well that with you I should never have food enough. If you will get me an iron staff, which is strong, and which I cannot break against my knees, I will go out into the world. The farmer was glad, put his 2 horses in his cart, and fetched from the smith a staff so large and thick that the 2 horses could only just bring it away. The youth laid it across his knees, and snap! He broke it in 2 in the middle like a beanstalk and threw it away. The father then harnessed 4 horses and brought a bar which was long and thick, that the 4 horses could only just drag it. The son snapped this also in twain against his knees, threw it away, and said, Father, this can be no use to me. You must harness more horses and bring a stronger staff. So the father harnessed 8 horses and brought one which was so long and thick that the 8 horses could only just carry it. When the son took it in his hand, he broke off a bit from the top of it also, and said, Father, I see that you will no longer be able to procure me any much staff as I want. I will remain no longer with you. So he went away and gave out that he was a smith's apprentice. He arrived at a village, wherein lived a smith who was a greedy fellow, who never did a kindness to anyone, but wanted everything for himself. The youth went into the smithy and asked if he needed a journeyman. Yes, said the smith, and looked at him and thought, And it's a strong fellow who will strike out well and earn his bread. So he asked, How much wages dost thou want? I don't want anything at all, he replied. Only every fortnight, when the other journeymen are paid, I will give thee 2 blows, and thou must bear them. The Meister was heartily satisfied, and thought he could thus save much money. Next morning, the strange journeyman was to begin work, but when the master brought the glowing bar and the youth struck it first blow, the iron flew asunder, and the anvil sank so deep into the ground that there was no bringing it out again. Then the Meister grew angry, and said, Oh, but I cannot make any use of you. You strike far too powerfully. What will you have for 1 blow? Then he said, I will only give you quite a small blow. That's all. And he raised his foot and gave him such a kick that he flew away over 4 loads of hay. Then he sought out the thickest iron bar in the smithy for himself, took it as a stick in his hand, and went onwards. When he had walked for some time, he came to a small farm and asked the bailiff if he did not require a head servant. Yes, said the bailiff, I can make use of one. You look a strong fellow who could do something. How much a year do you want as wages? He again replied that he wanted no wages at all, but that every year he would give him 3 blows, which he must bear. Then the bailiff was satisfied, for he too was a covetous fellow. Next morning, all the servants were to go into the wood, and others were already up, but the head servant was still in bed. Then one of them called to him, "Get up, it is time. We are going into the wood, and thou must go with us." "Ah," said he quite roughly and surely, "you may just go. Then I shall be back again for any of you." Then the others went to the bailiff and told him that the head man was still lying in bed and would not go into the wood with him. The bailiff said they were to awaken him again and tell him to harness the horses. The head man, however, said as he before, "Just go there. I shall be back again before any of you." Then he stayed in bed 2 hours longer. At length he arose from the feathers, but first he got himself into a bushel of peas from the loft, made himself some broth with them, ate it at his leisure, and when that was done, went and harnessed the horses and drove them into the wood. Not far from the wood was a ravine through which he had to pass, so he first drove the horses on and then stopped them and went behind the cart, took trees and brushwood and made a great barricade so that no horse could get through. When he was entering the wood, the others were just driving out of it with their loaded carts to go home. Then he said to him, "Drive on, I will get home before you do." He did not drive far into the wood, but at once tore two of the very largest trees of all out of the earth, threw them on his cart and turned around. When he came to the barricade, the others were still standing there, not able to get through. "Don't you see," said he, "that if you had stayed with me, you would have got home just as quickly, and would have had another hour's sleep?" He now wanted to drive on, but his horses could not work their way through, so he unharnessed them, laid them on top of the cart, took the shafts in his own hands, and pulled it all through. And he did this just as easily as if it had been laden with feathers. When he was over, he said to the others, "There, you see, I have got over quicker than you," and drove on, and the others had to stay where they were. In the yard, however, he took a tree in his hand, showed it to the bailiff, and said, "Isn't that a fine bundle of wood?" Then said the bailiff to his wife, "The servant's a good one. If he does sleep long, he is still home before the others." So he served the bailiff for a year, and when that was over and the other servants were getting their wages, he said it was time for him to have his too. The bailiff, however, was afraid of the blows which he was to receive, and earnestly entreated him to excuse him from having them. For rather than that, he himself would be head servant, and the youth should be a bailiff. "No," said he, "I will not be a bailiff. I am a head servant, and will remain so, but I will minister that which we agreed on." The bailiff was willing to give him whatsoever he demanded, but it was of no use. The head servant said no to everything. Then the bailiff did not know what to do, and begged for a fortnight's delay, for he wanted to find some way to escape. The head servant consented to this delay. The bailiff summoned all his clerks together, and they were to think the matter over and gave him advice. The clerks pondered for a long time, but at last they said that no one was sure of this life with the head servant, for he could kill a man as easily as a midge, and that the bailiff ought to make him get into the well and clean it, and when he was down below, they would roll up one of the millstones which was lying there and throw it on his head. Then he would never return to daylight. The advice pleased the bailiff, and the head servant was quite willing to go down the well. When he was standing down below, at the bottom, they rolled down the largest millstone, and thought they had broken his skull. But he cried, "Chase away those hens from the well. They are scratching in the sand up there, and throwing the grains in my eyes, so that I can't see." So the bailiff cried, "Shh," and he pretended to frighten the hens away. When the head servant had finished his work, he climbed up and just said, "Just look what a beautiful necktie I have on." And behold, it was the millstone which he was wearing around his neck. The head servant now wanted to take his reward, but the bailiff again begged for a fortnight's delay. The clerks met together and advised him to send the head servant to the haunted mill to grind corn by night, for from thence as yet no man has ever returned in the morning alive. The proposal pleased the bailiff. He called the head servant that very evening, and ordered him to take 8 bushels of corn to the mill, and grind it that night, for it was what was wanted. So the head servant went to the loft, and put 2 bushels in his right pocket, and 2 in his left, and 2 4 in his wallet, half on his back, and half on his breast, and thus Aladdin went to the haunted mill. The miller told him that he could grind there very well by day, but not by night, for the mill was haunted, and that up to the present time whoever has gone into it at night had been found in the morning lying dead inside. He said, "I will manage it. Just you go away to bed." Then he went into the mill and poured out the corn. About 11 o'clock he went into the miller's room and sat down on the bench. When he had sat there a while, a door suddenly opened, and a large table came in, and on the table wine and roasted meats placed themselves, and much good food besides, but everything came to itself, for no one was there to carry it. After this, the chairs pushed themselves up, but no people came, until all at once he beheld fingers which handled knives and forks, and laid food on the plates, but with this exception he saw nothing. As he was hungry, and saw the food, he, too, placed himself at the table, ate with those who were eating, and enjoyed it. When he had enough, and the others also had quite emptied their dishes, he distinctly heard all the candles being suddenly snuffed out, and as it was now pitch dark, he felt something like a box on the ear. Then he said, "If anything of that comes again, I shall strike out in return." And when he had received a second box on the ear, he too struck out. And so it continued the whole night. And he took nothing without returning it, but repaid everything with interest, and did not lay about him in vain. At daybreak, however, everything ceased. When the miller had gotten up, he wanted to look after him, and wondered if he was still alive. Then the youth said, "I have eaten my fill, have received some boxes on the ears, but I have given some in return." The miller rejoiced, and said that the mill was now released from the spell, and wanted to give him much money as a reward. But he said, "Money I will not have, I have enough of it." So he took his meal on his back, went home, and told the bailiff that he had done what he had been told to, and would now have the reward agreed on. When the bailiff heard that, he was seriously alarmed and quite beside himself. He walked backwards and forwards in the room, and dropped of perspiration ran down from his forehead. Then he opened the window to get some fresh air, but before he was aware, the head servant had given him such a kick that he flew through the window out into the air, and so far away that no one ever saw him again. Then said the head servant to the bailiff's wife, "If he does not come back, you must take the other blow." She cried, "No, no, I cannot bear it," and opened the other window because drops of perspiration were running down her forehead. Then he gave her such a kick that she too flew out, and as she was lighter, she went much higher than her husband. Her husband cried, "Do you come to me?" But she replied, "Come thou to me, I cannot come to thee." And they hovered about there in the air, and could not get to each other. And whether they are still hovering about or not, I do not know. But the young giant took up his iron bar, and went on his way. Oh, man. That was a good one, right? Oh, I couldn't count how many times I messed up. Maybe like a handful. I gotta get better at reading this all in one sitting. And I don't think it was that bad, but maybe bearable. Okay, folks, so that was the young giant. Oh man, what an interesting tale that was. I'm gonna say that was a long one. That was a good practice. We can only imagine how bad it's gonna be next time. But if you stuck around this long, that means you're interested into the pitiful, pitiful work that I do. Well, that's it for that one. Oh, okay. Well, I kind of have some truth to tell you. I kind of ran out of magic on this one, or deep stroking abilities. I can't do that right now. That took a lot out of me last time. I guess I'm just gonna have to get up and leave. Okay, well. This is weird. I don't know what to do. I mean, I guess I got in that way, maybe. Okay, well, whatever. Alright, bye. Freaking dumbasses. They'll never see this when it comes to live.